What do you know about Ecuador? We learned some very interesting things about Ecuador while preparing this podcast, and we hope you'll find them interesting too. Welcome to
Aprender Inglés con Reza y Craig.
Hello, I'm Reza,
And my name's Craig.
and with over 45 years of teaching experience between us, we'll help you improve your English and take it up to the next level. How are you, Craig?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing very well, I must say.
Good.
Shall we get cracking with some feedback?
Yes, our first voice message is from Luis from Venezuela, who is currently living in Madrid, and he has a question on a quick way to certify his English.
Hey guys, my name is Luis. I'm from Caracas, Venezuela, but I've been living in Madrid for the last 4 years. First of all, I want to say thank you. Your work is a proof that it's possible to learn a language and have fun at the same time. So thank you very much, guys. It is always useful to listen to episodes of your podcast, and a very refreshing way to improve, I think. So thank you. On the other hand, I need some advice. I'm currently among the finalists in an application process for a better job. I've been working as a waiter since I came here, so I really want to get it. But the thing is that they suddenly require a credential of my English level, and I do not have one because I'm a self-educated speaker. So I have to do a test and certify my level, and I need to do it fast. I will appreciate if you can give me information about a quick and reputable test to certify my English. Thank you, guys. Wish me luck.
Thank you very much, Luis, for your excellent message. Your English is obviously a very, very high standard, very fluent, very easy to understand. And your message was very, very well delivered. I apologize for not getting back to you sooner. I think there was some urgency in your need for a suitable exam. What would you suggest, Reza?
Well, it depends. It depends what you're going to do with this certification, with this qualification. Certainly, if you want a title, a qualification quickly, the two most obvious qualifications which come to mind are either IELTS or APTIS, because they can be arranged and done very quickly. Whereas other exams take much longer to register. You got to wait to do it. IELTS, within a couple of weeks after registering, you can do it. The same for APTIS. You may have heard of IELTS. It's more popular. It's more widely known than APTIS. APTIS, that's APTIS, is the British Council's own test to verify your level. Whereas IELTS is a more international qualification, which is recognized in many universities and educational institutions around the world. So both are good. I suppose, to be honest, IELTS is probably more recognized than APTIS.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And it's also worth mentioning that both of those exams, APTIS and IELTS is IELTS if you want to Google it, both of those give you a level of your English. They are not pass or fail exams. Whereas if you take a Cambridge exam, there's a possibility that you won't pass. So then you waste your money and you have to retake it. And the process can take some time. So I agree with Reza. Those two suggestions are probably your best bet. And there are links on the website at inglespodcast.com/254, links to the websites of both those examining boards.
Can I just make a quick comment on your English, which was very good, Luis, but a tiny little error of vocabulary. You said, we are a proof that learning can be fun. Thank you very much. We're very happy to hear that. But we cannot say a proof because proof is uncountable. So we are proof, no a with proof. And also the pronunciation of reputable. Good word. We're very impressed that you've used that word, but put the stress on the first syllable, reputable.
And if you're going to take an English test and you need some extra classes and you're looking for a reputable place to find a teacher, what can you do? Well, you could find an online teacher by using our sponsor, italki. Think of italki as a marketplace that connects students with teachers. You choose a teacher and then you choose a date and a time for your lesson. How do you choose your teacher? Well, you can choose your teacher based on where they're from, how much they charge per hour, what languages the teacher speaks, based on the teacher's skills and experience. So there are many factors that you can use to choose your personal one-to-one teacher. The lessons are customized for your learning style and goals, and it's not expensive to have your own personal one-to-one teacher so that you get a good mark in your IELTS or your APTIS test. So Reza and I both recommend italki. Why not give it a go?
If you want some more information about how to start your lessons with italki, go to inglespodcast.com and follow the link or click on the image and get started with italki. If you go through inglespodcast.com and you join italki, they'll give you a $10 credit for your first lesson.
Remember, your $10 italki credit, you can find that by going to inglespodcast.com/254 and just click the italki image. Thank you very much, italki, for sponsoring Aprender Inglés con Reza y Craig.
Now, we've arrived at the main topic for today. As we said in the introduction, we want to talk about a country today. We want to talk about Ecuador. And we got this idea from a voice message from Brian from Ecuador.
Hello, Rez and Craig. I'm Brian from Ecuador, and I just wanted to record a voice message to say thank you because I'm learning a lot of new vocabulary and grammar rules from your podcast. I started listening to your podcast just some days ago, but I find them really interesting and fun because I never get bored listening to your podcast. And I was wondering if you could talk about more countries such as England or the USA or maybe Ecuador. So I will thank you a lot if you do more podcasts about different countries around the world. And that's all. Thank you and have a good day.
Well, thank you very much, Brian. We appreciate your compliments. We always appreciate when people tell us nice things. So thank you very much for that. And I think it's a good idea that we speak about Ecuador, Reza.
Yes, since Brian is from Ecuador, let's start with his country.
He probably knows all of these things that we're going to mention.
But he's probably used to hearing them in Spanish, not in English.
That's
the
true.
thing.
That's true.
So he's from the República del Ecuador, which is the full title of what we call in English Ecuador.
That's right. And it's bordered by Colombia on the north, Peru on the east and the south, and it has the Pacific Ocean to the west. So it shares its border with Colombia and Peru.
Ecuador is the name of a country, but as you know, Ecuador also can be that line which goes around the middle of the earth. It's the same word in Spanish, but in English it's a different word. The line around the middle of the earth at 0 degrees is the equator. Equator. But the country is the Republic of Ecuador. Equador. Different words in English.
And a part of Ecuador that I would really love to visit, the Galapagos Islands in the Pacific. I would love to go there and see the animals on the Galapagos Islands. It's in the Pacific, about 1,000 kilometers west of the mainland. What's the capital city of Ecuador?
The capital city, which is on the mainland, is Quito, Quito. And the population of the whole country is, or was in 2016, 16,385,068. So about 16.5 million. And the capital is a big city in Quito. In 2016, the official figures were nearly 3 million inhabitants just in Quito.
And Ecuador was colonized by Spain, as were many countries in Central and South America during the 16th century. Ecuador got its independence in 1820 as part of Gran Colombia, and it emerged as its own sovereign state in 1830. To emerge is to develop or come out of. So it came out of Gran Colombia and got its own sovereignty in 1830.
As of course you all know, I'm sure, the official language, or one of the official languages, is Spanish. But there are at least 14 other recognized languages spoken in Ecuador. There are 13 indigenous languages which are recognized, such as Quechua or Shuar.
And Ecuador is the name of the country, Ecuador. The noun or adjective to describe something or someone related to the country is Ecuadorian. And there are two possible spellings of Ecuadorian: Ecuadorian or Ecuadorian, Ecuadorian. So the stress is on the middle syllable, Ecuadorian, an Ecuadorian person.
And as I mentioned earlier, the equator is not a country, it's that line around the middle of the earth. And the adjective to describe things related to that line, to the equator, that adjective is equatorial. So Equatorial. There are many equatorial countries. Ecuador is not the only one. There are other countries which fall on the equator. So there are many equatorial countries. But if you are Ecuadorian, you are specifically from the Republic of Ecuador. To give you an example, there's another ex-Spanish colony called Equatorial Guinea. Mm-hmm. That was a Spanish colony as well. It's called Equatorial Guinea because it's a country which, like Ecuador, lies on the equator. Shall we tell our listeners some interesting facts about Ecuador?
Yes, we were looking at a website called atlasandboots.com. There's a link in the show notes where you could see the full article on Ecuador. But here are 10 fun facts about Ecuador that we hope you'll find interesting. Reza, what's the national tree of Ecuador?
Well, now, I didn't know this till we researched a little bit on internet.
Me neither.
And I found out it was the cinchona tree. It's the tree which produces quinine. Now, quinine I had heard of, I should say, before I heard of the cinchona tree. I didn't know that quinine comes from that tree. But quinine, as many people do know, is that drug which is used to prevent and treat malaria and exists in tonic water.
That's right, because when the British troops were in India, they drank so many gin and tonics because the quinine in tonic used to prevent infection by malaria. I'm not sure if it still has quinine in tonic.
A little bit, yeah.
Does it?
Yeah.
It still has it?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. There's some in that. And they still use quinine to treat malaria to this day. Yeah, indeed they do.
Interesting.
What I didn't know was that the tree was originally from Ecuador. The tree is not native to India. It was brought from Ecuador to India by the British when they discovered its properties. So we think of gin and tonic, the quinine, and we think of that as a very British thing to do in India. But no, it existed first in Ecuador.
Interesting. Our second fact is that, Brazil is a huge country and shares its borders with many countries in South America, but there are two countries that do not share a border with Brazil. One is Chile and the other is Ecuador. So Chile and Ecuador, no borders with Brazil. They're not neighbours.
Our third fact is about nature. This really surprised me. In 2008, Ecuador was the first country to officially recognize the rights of nature.
Isn't that lovely that they did that?
It's a beautiful thought, isn't it?
It is nice.
That's right, the rights of nature. So rather than treating nature as property, Ecuador, the country, recognizes that nature has constitutional rights and has the right to exist, persist, maintain, and regenerate its vital cycles.
Wouldn't it be nice if more countries followed Ecuador's footsteps and followed their approach, took their approach to protecting nature? If you follow in someone's footsteps, you copy them, you do the same thing. It would be lovely if more countries followed in Ecuador's footsteps and gave nature rights like human beings have rights. I think that's lovely.
Craig, for the fourth point, if I were to mention to you the name Julian Assange, what do you think of?
WikiLeaks.
Yep. Do you know what happened to Julian Assange?
I don't know where he is now, but I know that he was granted political asylum by Ecuador in the Ecuadorian embassy, the embassy of Ecuador in London. So I know that happened in 2012. And according to Atlas and Boots, it happened in June 2012. So that's when he went into the Ecuadorian embassy and asked for political asylum. And as far as I know, he's still there, isn't he?
As far as I know, yes. So he's been living there ever since. Because in theory, if Mr. Assange steps foot outside the Ecuadorian embassy in London, he could be arrested.
They can arrest him.
And the British police might send him to Sweden because he faces extradition. In Sweden, they want to talk to him about an alleged crime that he may or may not have committed. He's not really that worried about Sweden. His main concern is that from Sweden, he might be extradited again to America, and there for sure he's going to be in big trouble.
Yeah, I think he's currently under investigation. They are investigating him and his behavior, his past behavior. So he's under investigation by the US government. But I think it's a good thing what he did. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah, and whether they were right to or not, I certainly have to say that the government of Ecuador was very brave to defy the American government and give Mr. Assange asylum. It was very brave. They didn't do what America told them to. They defied the USA.
I'm pleased they did. Mount Chimborazo. I hope I've pronounced that correctly. Chimborazo. Mount Chimborazo is in Ecuador. It's Ecuador's highest mountain, and the summit, SUMMIT, the top, the summit of Mount Chimborazo is the point on the Earth that is closest to the sun. Because, of course, the equator, as the Earth turns, the line of the equator is closest to the sun. So because the mountain is in Ecuador, it's the closest point to the sun. That means it's higher or closer to the sun than Mount Everest, right?
Yes. So even though Mount Everest is very, very spectacular and it's the highest mountain on Earth, Ecuador has the mountain which is closest to space, because let's say that Ecuador as a country being on the equator is already automatically closer to the sun, because there's a bulge, bulge. So as you know, hopefully the Earth is a sphere. It's round, so the equator sticks out. It's a bulge. Any place on the equator is mathematically already closer to the sun than anywhere not on the equator. So even though Mount Chimborazo is not as high as Everest, it's still closer to the sun than Everest.
And its summit is the farthest point from the Earth's core, C-O-R-E. The core is the center. So the center of an apple is the apple core. The center of the Earth is the Earth's core. And it's the farthest point from the Earth's core.
Do you know the lowest place on Earth, by the way?
Is it the Dead Sea?
Yes, it is. It's a place I've always wanted to visit as well. The lowest place on Earth.
400 meters below sea level.
Below sea level, yeah. So there's a sea below sea level. And the reason I'd like to visit there is because there are certain special qualities to be connected to being the lowest place on Earth and to being the highest place. In Ecuador, if you go up Mount Chimborazo, I imagine it's very easy to get sunburnt because you're much closer to the sun than anywhere else. So you're going to get sunburned. And it's the opposite in the Dead Sea. People go to the Dead Sea in Israel to sunbathe without getting sunburnt because you're so low down, the sun gets filtered out a lot. So you have less chance of being sunburnt.
Although it is bloody hot there. I've been there. It's really hot. We said that we should go there one day. I think we should do a trip there.
I want to go there because I want to float in the Dead Sea.
Yeah.
I tell you what, let's go to the Dead Sea, the lowest point on Earth, and let's go to Mount Chimborazo, the place on Earth closest to the sun. We'll try and do both places.
Definitely.
We'll put that on our bucket list.
Definitely. Ecuador is one of 18 megadiverse countries in the world. It has the most biodiversity per square kilometre of any nation. And a megadiverse country must have at least 5,000 species of endemic plants.
And also, it must border a marine ecosystem. And as we mentioned earlier, indeed, Ecuador lies on the Pacific coast.
And I mentioned the Galapagos Islands earlier as one place I'd love to visit. And Charles Darwin famously visited Ecuador's Galapagos Islands in 1835, and he actually based his theory of evolution on the discoveries that he made there. That's one reason I would like to go. It sounds like a paradise to me.
Have you heard about the very old tortoises that live in the Galapagos
100
Islands?
years old are they? Or
More. So, as I'm sure a lot of you already know, the Galapagos tortoise is a species which can live for well over 100 years.
Is it a tortoise or a turtle? And what's the
It's
difference?
a tortoise.
It's a tortoise.
It's a tortoise because it only lives on land.
Okay.
A turtle lives at sea.
Yeah.
So it's a tortoise. And what's more, Galapagos tortoises are very big. Really, really big. And now I probably should have checked this on internet before telling you, but I think if not still alive, then it very recently died. The last tortoise which Charles Darwin actually had contact with was alive very recently. Yes, because there were some baby tortoises that Charles Darwin had contact with in 1835, and now, or very recently, they were still alive. So tortoises that he used to help come up with his theory of evolution were or are, if not now, then very recently, alive because they live 140, 150 years.
It's amazing what Charles Darwin has taught us.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. What Charles Darwin has tortoise. I get it now. Very good.
It took you a couple of seconds
Very
there, mate,
good.
to get that.
I didn't see that one coming.
You didn't see it coming?
I didn't see it coming, but it's good. It's good. I must say, Craig's sense of humor has evolved a lot. It really has.
Taught us. Ecuador, number 7. Ecuador has the world's first and second UNESCO World Heritage sites. In the inaugural UNESCO World Heritage Conference in 1978, inaugural means the first, 32 sites were initially designated. Every World Heritage site has a number. Site number 1 is the Galapagos Islands, and site number 2 is the capital city of Quito. Now that's quite impressive to have number 1 and number 2 in the list of World Heritage sites from the very beginning in 1978, both in Ecuador.
Yeah, not bad at all. Speaking about that number 2, Quito, that's Ecuador's capital. It's also very high above sea level, like Mount Chimborazo. It's 2,850 meters above sea level. That's a lot, eh? Mm-hmm. So that makes it the highest official capital city in the world. I
thought La Paz was the highest.
Yes, a lot of people think that. La Paz, which is in Bolivia, is higher than Quito, but it's not the constitutional capital of the country. The constitutional capital of Bolivia is Sucre.
I see.
And La Paz is the seat of government. Yeah, it's kind of complicated situation in Bolivia. So Quito can say that they are still the highest official capital city in the world.
Yeah, that can happen with countries that you think it's the capital, but it's not the constitutional capital. Like in Australia, some people think that the capital is Sydney, but the constitutional capital is Canberra.
Yeah.
And it's the same. Is it the same in Canada?
Canada, many people think it's Toronto or Montreal or something like that. It's Ottawa.
The constitution is Ottawa. Yeah,
and it's not that big.
Yeah.
Quite small.
And Reza spoke earlier about Equatorial Guinea, the country. There's an animal called a guinea pig, Guinea, guinea pig, which is known as, how would you say that, Reza? Cuy?
C-U-Y, so it looks like cuy.
Cuy.
So in Ecuador, they call the guinea pig the cuy.
And it's considered a delicacy in Ecuador. They eat guinea pigs. Its consumption is seen as an ancient tradition. I wonder how they cook it. Would you fancy eating a guinea pig?
I would try it. I don't see why not. But I tell you what, since they eat guinea pigs, I tell you what, I would never volunteer for anything new in Ecuador. Who wants to try something new? As soon as you say yes, they can eat you because you're a guinea pig. So you better not volunteer for anything new, because in English, a guinea pig is someone who volunteers for something new.
That's right.
And if they eat them in Ecuador, well, you better not volunteer then. They could end up eating you.
So, Brian, have you eaten guinea pig? And how do you cook it? Could you tell us how? Do you barbecue it? Do you stew it? How do you cook and eat guinea pig? I wonder what it tastes like.
Well, there's another food which most of us have eaten, which is far, far, far more obviously associated with Ecuador, and that is, of course, the banana. I remember as a kid seeing bananas with a sticker, un pegatin, on them saying, imported from Ecuador, or even Quito, or the name of the city where the company's from.
I remember that. Actually, around 30% of all bananas in the world, or all bananas exported, come from Ecuador. It's the country's most important industry after oil, petróleo. So after oil, it's the second most important export. And something I did not know, I knew the bananas, but I didn't know that it's the third largest exporter of flowers. I knew Holland exports a lot of flowers, but I didn't know Ecuador did.
No,
must be the climate.
Yep. So we hope you've enjoyed some of those interesting facts about Ecuador. I know that some of them surprised me, and maybe you were surprised as well.
Thank you, Brian, for the suggestion. And if you want to read more, that information was taken from atlasandboots.com. The link is on the website. And if you're enjoying these occasional podcasts based around countries, please let us know so that we can create some more for you, because we don't know if it's to everybody's taste. If you're enjoying these, let us know. We've also spoken about Wales and Canada in the past, so let us know if you'd like some more of these.
Okay then, now it's your turn to practice your English. Why don't you get involved? Send us a voice message. Just go to SpeakPipe. That's SPEAKPIPE. SpeakPipe.com/English podcast and send us an audio recording.
Yeah, let us know if you'd like more podcasts based around countries. If you prefer to contact us by email, you can reach Reza at belfastreza@gmail.com.
Or Craig, you can get him at craig@englishpodcast.com.
And we'd like to thank our wonderful patrons who are supporting the show and enable us to provide you with transcriptions on Patreon. Special thanks to Bruno, our gold sponsor, who offers walking tours of the wonderful city of Copenhagen. The tours are in English or Spanish, whatever preference you have, and more information can be found at copenhagenwalkingtour.com. And if you find yourself you're going to find yourself in the lovely city of Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, why don't you go to Bruno's website favelawalkingtour.com.br, where you can find local guides to take you around the favela area. The tours of the favela are very safe, and the money helps the community to improve their daily needs. Both of those websites can be found in our show notes.
Maybe you would like to become a Patreon sponsor. For just $1 a month as a Patreon sponsor, you will get instant access to recent audio transcriptions that, as ever, are lovingly transcribed by Angelica Bello. If you're interested in donating as little as $1 a month to be a Patreon, have a look at Patreon, that's Patreon, patreon.com/English podcast.
And before we go out the door, we'd like to welcome our new Patreon supporters who have joined us this month. They are Carlos and Abel Nunez. Thank you very much, guys, for joining us on Patreon. What's next week, Reza?
Next week's episode is all about pollution and contamination.
I wonder what the difference is in English. Find out next week. Thank you for listening. Until next week, it's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me.
The music in this podcast is by Pitts. The track is called See You Later.
Sorry.
So examining boards.
I didn't notice.
Examining boards. I'm part of Ecuador, part of the country that I would love to visit. I really would. Oh, well, that sounds stupid, Craig.
Yes, but that's a Pandora's box.
Yeah, maybe I'll take that out.
Let's not mention that. And Donald Trump and other. Oh dear.
Yeah,
No,
okay.
take that out altogether. That's really delicate.
Edit point.
Get that out.